Hey guys, this is Jonathan from Fitness for Freedom. Today we are going to show you how to improve the mobility of your hip flexors. Before you watch this video, you need to understand why it's important for you to have good hip flexor mobility. Now, the truth is that if you're someone who's sitting all the time and you're in this sort of position where your hips always flex like this, that's going to shorten your hip flexor, which can sometimes cause back pain. It can sometimes cause knee pain. It makes it hard for you to extend your leg all the way back if you're someone who likes to run or walk up hills. So having good hip flexor mobility is really important. Now, these are the three exercises that I find are the most beneficial. The first is the dynamic hip flexor stretch. Now, what you're going to do is place your leg or your ankle just on your chair or a bench or something that's about roughly the same height as the base of your glute. Okay, you're going to move forward just a little bit with your other leg, and you're going to dip down, keeping your back relatively flat and keeping your hips forward. So you'll feel a nice stretch from here and right across up into your hip, okay? Now by doing this stretch, okay, we're going to really lengthen that hip flexor muscle. And I'm going to come back up after I've held it for about 5 seconds or so, and I'm going to dip back down again, okay? And I'll repeat that maybe 6, 7, or 8 times just to get the maximum benefit out of it. Now, one thing that I see a lot of people do, or a lot of people will do that's sort of incorrect, is that they'll go down and they'll let their back really arch out trying to get down and push their hips forward, okay? That's going to put a lot of strain on your lower back, and you want to avoid that. So just try to stay as upright and neutral as possible as you dip down, and really try to avoid that hyperextension of your back as you go down. And if you need to hold on to something for balance, then definitely do that. There's no worry about that. Okay, now the next 2 exercises are done on the floor, so we'll go there. So the next exercise that I like to have people do is the dynamic hip flexor or the kneeling hip flexor stretch, okay? And this can actually be done dynamically or statically. So you set in sort of a captain's pose like this with your chest nice and tall. Hey, it's very similar to the dynamic hip stretch, except instead of dropping your hips down, you're actually going to push them forward, okay? And now you could hold this for a certain length of time, or you can gently move back and then move forward again and slowly try to push it more forward each time. Neither one is necessarily wrong, okay? The same principles apply as the dynamic hip flexor stretch. Don't try to push your hips too far forward and keep your back too far back, because then that'll hyperextend your back, okay? Now, I like to do at least 5-second holds if I'm doing the dynamic one, or holding it for 30 or 45 seconds if we're doing the static one, okay? Now, the final exercise that I would like to give, or do like to give people for improving the mobility of their hip flexor, is the foam roller, okay? So you take the foam roller and you're going to lay down on it onto your hip flexor. Now, you actually have a few different hip flexor muscles. So one of the biggest ones is your rectus femoris, which is actually the main muscle in your quadricep. It crosses your hip at the top. So you're not going to just spend time up in your hip. I actually think it's a good idea for you to move up and down the middle of your quadricep. Okay, so that you can really start to make that rectus femoris a lot more supple. Okay, so after you've spent maybe 45 seconds to a minute there, you can go up a little bit higher, and now we're going to come into more the iliopsoas or iliacus and psoas muscles. Okay, but when they're closer to your base of your hip, they're more the same muscle than the separate muscles. They become higher up in your body. Okay, so you're going to roll back and forth. Okay, you can go cross body which is against the muscle fiber to help massage it out, or you can go with the muscle fiber. I like to do a mix of both. Okay, so that we can get the most variation and sort of get the maximum benefit out of doing that roll. Okay. So that's basically it. Those are the top 3 exercises to help improve your hip flexor mobility. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we deliver content just like it every week. If you have any comments or questions about hip flexor mobility, please leave them in the box below. Take care, and we'll talk to you next time.